Hello. It's been a long time, but it's another episode of the End of the World podcast. Started in January of 2020 when I foresaw that COVID was coming and that it would truly change the shape, the future of the entire world. And I was the first person I know who said that. I'd like to supply you with much of the harassment I got from Russian bots. Why do you want to scare people? What's wrong with you? And of course, some were just Fox followers who were taught to say, the flu, people get sick every year from the flu. So what? This thing is much less. The greatest one, this was the biggest bunch of bullshit I ever saw, was when somebody said, look, this year the flu has killed so many and COVID has killed much less. And that's, of course, because we only had 2 months of COVID at that time, and we'd had 5 months of flu. Well, anyway, we're not going to get into that tonight because I have a topic tonight that I really would like you to listen to, and I have not decided what the title of tonight is because it's so important. I have to make sure that I come up with a title that will grab everyone. But here is the title. It is the most important topic that we're going to be discussing, or anybody's going to be discussing, unless a nuclear war breaks out. But between now and December 6th, when they have the runoff election in Georgia. And what is that important topic? The important topic is, and no one has had the courage to say this, not the Midas Touch, the Midas brothers, who pat themselves on the back for being so brave. Oh, look, we talk about things that nobody else talks about. No, I'm going to do that tonight. And Brian Tyler Cohen, who talks about things that nobody else talks about. Oh, he's so brave. Oh, he's going to talk about it. You notice, I'm going to tell you that, first of all, this is not the topic of tonight's episode, but neither of those have had the courage to comment on or do any sort of tracing or proving of the Russian contribution or influence to Donald Trump's litigation. Neither of them have had, or nobody has said anything about it. Not MSNBC, nobody. I haven't even heard it on any of the Pacifica stations. Nobody's willing to step out on that limb. But I will just tell you that the reason that Donald Trump's recent batches of litigation make so little sense, and they are just cuckoo in the head, they're just constant sprays of the New York AG is so terrible, and all she can do is come against me, and the judge she appointed, no, she didn't appoint the judge, that's just not true. It just is in her pocket, and that all of that kind of pitying, self-pitying, and victimization is par for the course and normal if we were in Russia and he was filing his papers with the court and he was Putin or somebody like that. They would file papers saying that this is a terrible situation, they're really being screwed, and they don't deserve it because they are such great people. That's the way you win in Russia. And what that means is, and no one has the courage to say this except me, somebody in Russia is writing Trump's pleadings. I'll say it again. Somebody, or maybe more than one person, in Russia is writing Trump's pleadings. That's why they are so bizarrely phrased. That's why on the last one he filed it going against what's her name, James in New York. He had a paragraph that made absolutely no sense, just going on and on about how he is just mistreated and the victim of the Democrats and the fascists, and just this, and the sentence structure was just bizarre. And that was because those are translations written in Russian, probably put in Google Translate, and Donald is translating them and then filing them with the court. He does have a very foolish lawyer who is signing his name to the pleadings, and boy, is he an absolute fool to do that, because he's going to lose his license quick. It's just tremendous to watch the court's clear warnings to this new lawyer who got his license in 2013. Does that make him a new lawyer? I don't know. What do you think? Okay, but the new lawyer that Donald Trump is having sign his pleadings, where he is attempting to stop the New York AG from investigating his finances and his control over his New York family's wealth, the lawyer that's involved in that is obviously just signing his name. The other people in this milieu, the people that we normally look for to hold up the liberal side, are only saying, and incorrectly so, the Midas touch, and they're saying that Donald Trump is writing the pleadings, and that's why they make no sense. Donald Trump could not write pleadings. He can't. It's not possible. You have to be able to focus and to keep your attention, and he can't do that. So he has got too many mental problems where he can't draft, or he can't come up with a logical statement, a cohesive argument. So no, these are arguments that are supplied to him from Russians and in Russian, and he's putting them into probably Google Translate, or maybe a better one. You know, there are more expensive ones that do a better job. I don't know the names. And he's putting them there, and he's filing the translation. Therefore, it's now in English, and it's being translated, and it is signed by his lucky new lawyer, who will lose his license very quickly. I know I said that, but it's definitely true. That's the first problem. That's the first thing that media, MSNBC, the Midas Touch, the Young Turks, all of these people are, and Brian Tyler Cohen and Rachel, none of them have had the courage to say that. Those pleadings are written by a Russian, and they clearly are. Here's the other one. You better sit down, because I'm going to be bringing evidence to back up my allegation here constantly over the next few weeks as we approach the runoff election in Georgia. If you circulate my programs so that other people hear the accusation, and I think really much more importantly, hear the evidence backing my allegation, Warnock should have an easy win, because the accusation I'm going to be making against Hershel Walker is obvious. It's clear. Once you see the evidence, you cannot deny it. You can't ignore it. It's a proof. It's a smoking gun. But I haven't gathered them yet. I know they're out there, the pieces of evidence I need to prove it. So I'm going to get those and put them in, and we will discuss them. In other words, I'll put them in as part of next week's show, and I'll wait for you people to kindly throw in your opinion, and I'll read some of the statements that come in saying, oh, here's what I hear. What do I hear? What is the point? Hershel Walker clearly has brain damage. Clearly. If you listen to the clarity of his speech from, let's say, 2010 is where I've heard a half hour to 45 minutes of him speaking. And then you compare it to him speaking now, you can hear very clearly he has lost his ability to speak clearly. He has now constantly slurred speech. It could be caused by a few different causes. I'm not a doctor. I'm not going to diagnose him or attempt to diagnose him. I don't think I could diagnose him. But my guess is that it is the CTE. It's the brain damage that inures to football players, and now they're, of course, it was obvious, but they're at least admitting it, it now is being found in UFC fighters, of course. So, let me get off track here. UFC fighters are now showing it. I have a story that I think is just chilling. I could go for some chili, actually, right now. I wonder if there's... I used to love boxing. Especially when, Muhammad Ali was in it, and when Sugar Ray Leonard and Tommy Hearns. I used to love it. And I would watch every fight. Even sometimes I even paid, to go see fights. Not in person. I wouldn't go see real fights in person because that was just nothing I wanted to be a part of. But I did go to the Olympic Auditorium and watch the fight on closed screen between Inoki, the great Japanese wrestler, and Ali. Kind of a nothing fight, but you did see Ali's legs get beat to a pulp, and it was very scary. And his ability to fight was never the same after that. But what stopped it was there was a study published in the very great newspaper, The Lancet, which is a medical newspaper published in Britain. Very high respectability. And the Lancet article was clearly to the effect that they had found, their research had found, that a boxer in the ring gets demonstrable brain damage with each punch, not each fight, each punch. So the British Medical Society, they call them there, had actually detected through a series of studies of fighters that each time a boxer gets a punch to the head, he suffers brain damage that is actually detectable in their studies. Now, there was no way to know, it was too soon, if this brain damage was permanent or is it something that would heal. I'm going to guess that in the meantime they have solved that, but I don't know what the answer is. But I'm talking about what was going on with me as a person when I read, or I think I heard on the radio, that encapsulation of the results of boxing, that these young men were suffering brain damage that was so real it could be measured with the tools that neurologists had, that immediately stopped it, and I never watched boxing again. I don't think I have watched 5 rounds of boxing in the 30 years since that study. That just knocked it right out of the park for me. Okay? It really did. I just wanted nothing to do with it once I heard that, because the thought pattern is, well, what does that make me that I'm willing to contribute? And then people say, well, I don't see you giving any money to the fighter. No, you give money to the fighter by watching the TV show and watching the commercials. You give the fighter lots of attention and, in a way, money by watching the TV shows, the boxing on TV, and the show that the commercials that are on there that are broadcast as part of the fight. Well, that's how the fighter gets paid, and more importantly, that's how the boxing mafia gets paid from us watching. And therefore, I don't watch boxing anymore, ever. I don't want to be part of, well, I'm going to pay these young men to suffer brain damage in return to entertain me. And they are desperate for money when they start out, and so they're willing to accept horrible brain damage, and they kid themselves and say, well, I'm not really going to get it. Somebody else will get it. But the truth is, no, you are getting it and have already gotten it. You've gotten brain damage to get on as far as you've gotten. To get as far as you've gotten on TV, you've already succumbed to brain damage that is present and measurable on an EKG, but it's just a matter of, are they willing to put up with more of it? And, of course, the question I postulated earlier is, has anybody done the study to find out, does that heal? I'm going to guess it doesn't, because you see all these football players who are 10 years and 15 and 20 years away from their careers as football players, and they are worse. They are worse off than they were when they were playing football. They have the classic symptoms of concussion or brain damage, and they have, bouts of anger that are not only inexplicable, but are unpredictable and completely inconsistent with their personality before they got into football. They were nice, easygoing people, and now after enough concussions, now all of a sudden they get angry, they hit their wives, they do it all the time, and they have outbursts of anger in public. Well, that's the kind of stuff that this CTE, this damage that comes from football, is casting upon these men that play football. And now we find out it's casting them also in the UFC, but we'll get into that next time. So that is what Hershel Walker has, I think. Now, is it possible that he has something else? Sure. Look at Ali. He came up with something else that robbed him of his ability to speak, and the doctors contradicted themselves. I mean, not contradicted each other. That's what they actually did. Sorry. They contradicted each other, some saying, yeah, I think it might have been caused by boxing, and some said, no, many people get this disease. I forgot what disease he had, sorry. But many people get it who have no involvement with boxing and no history of brain injury or brain damage, none. So that's not the cause of Ali's injuries and damage. I don't know. But I can just tell you one thing. We don't have to know what the cause is in order to know that Hershel Walker has no business being near anything. He's not capable of making an intelligent decision about anything because he has the type of brain injury that prevents him from being reflective, from being able to think about something and to weigh the pros and cons. He doesn't have that. He instead has just anger. He has his first instinct is to call names and call people as being victimizers, and he being the victim, very similar to Donald Trump. So he's constantly saying, "Oh no, I'm being blackmailed here. Everything they're saying is a lie." And of course, he never supplies any counter evidence. He's not able to do that kind of an intelligent analysis of the arguments against him and to say, you know what, they're saying that I did this. If I had such and such an evidence, I would be able to prove that I did not do it. Well, I don't know what he's got going, but his brain damage is serious. It is getting worse. And when we compare his speech from 10 or 15 years ago with his current speech, and we're going to do that next week. We're going to have examples of him speaking, and we'll go back and forth between the two. And when we hear how different and how poor he now speaks, and it is not only clarity of speech, so it's not just how he formulates his words, but it's his complete inability to formulate a logical response. He cannot follow an argument, a modus ponens and modus tollens. He can't do it. If A, then B. If B, then C. Therefore, if A, then C. He has no ability to do any sort of analysis of any argument like that. So we're going to hope that he gives it up so that he doesn't need us to grab his money and to say, hey, you. What we're going to do is we're going to look at the speeches he made mostly at the time he was retiring from football. And I think he sounded pretty good. I really do. I think he sounded pretty clear, and I actually don't want to say anything that's going to encourage him or that might possibly get him one vote, but he actually was able to understand arguments and to formulate answers to them and all that kind of stuff. Well, that was when he was retiring from football. And some people will say, well, he certainly hasn't been hurt since then. Well, that's not the way the CTE works. CTE is the injuries you obtain during the time you're playing. It's concussions, so it's from being hit in the head, especially if you're being hit a time or two with no helmet or your helmet comes off or something like that. And it's those impacts that later over time start your brain deteriorating. And it's just awful. And that's basically what happens. So you've got him sounding clear as a bell, when he's retiring from football. I think it's either 15, 20 years ago. And instead, you cannot understand a word he says. So, and again, I want to make sure that this is not, because some people will say, well, that's a racist comment because I'm commenting on the lack of clarity of his speech, which is a common finding or argument or belittlement of people who speak in Ebonics. Well, he didn't speak in Ebonics at the time he retired from football, but more importantly, what's missing now is not just the clarity of speech. It's not just that you cannot understand the words. It's that he's missing what you would really want in a politician, and that is he's missing the ability to analyze arguments and say, no, here's what's wrong with that argument. They're saying that we should do this because of this, but that's not true because we could do this or this, and other people have done this, and it's worked out real well for them. So that's the kind of problems that Hershel Walker has that we don't want him in the position of senator. And we're not going to let him get anywhere near that. I'm going to ask you at the end of this show and at the end of the next one to contribute to Warnock, and let's get Warnock out there to where he's just unbelievably damaged is Hershel Walker, and so you don't want him representing the state of Georgia. So let's get some money into Warnock's pocket. Now, do I have a problem with Warnock? Yeah, I do. I have a problem with Warnock, and I have a problem with Chris Jones, who lost last night to that disgusting pig, Sanders. But the two of them, who do they think they are? I mean, they're both intelligent. They're both well-spoken. They both have college degrees. That doesn't entitle you to be a politician. If you want to be a politician, you have to have a law degree, or not have to, sorry about that. You should have a law degree, because when you're in politics, what you're doing is writing or opposing laws, and you're formulating new laws to fix societal problems. So you have to know which laws are legal, which laws are not, which laws have been held by the courts to be not legal for what reason, so that you don't bother writing up laws that the courts have already said you can't do that. So anybody, let's not name names, anybody who doesn't have a degree in law should not be running for any office, I don't think. But, well, maybe we could start at school board. Okay, something like that, maybe that's all right. But certainly not anything. They want to be, they want to run the snack bar at the local football stadium. All right, something like that's okay. But no, we do not want anybody who's to run for a huge platform, which is governor, if they've never had they've probably never had a constitutional law class, but they certainly don't have a degree in law. They should not be out there. And I think that goes for Warnock, who I like. He's a good guy, but he lacks the experience. And unfortunately, I think she's got the experience. She just puts it to the wrong. We're talking about his disgusting female opponent whose name, well, she already won. Okay, so she deserved to win because she is experienced in the art of politics, having been the spokesperson at the White House. So that's why I think that she unfortunately deserved to win over Chris. I cannot say that Hershel deserves to win over Warnock. But let's say this. Warnock, it's tough to say. Warnock is such a good person, he obviously deserves to win over Hershel Walker. But I would feel much better if he had a degree in law. Or maybe if there's, and I wonder I don't really know. I wonder what a degree in political science is like. Does that teach you how do laws get passed? I don't know. Does that teach you how laws get made, and, how do people contribute to block laws from getting passed? I don't know. But so if it does, then that would be an acceptable substitute. But right now I'm saying, since I don't know that, if you don't have a law degree, like from a law school, don't have to be a lawyer, I'm not saying that, but you have to have a law degree. You have no business being in politics, Mr. Warnock, and Chris Jones, you didn't have any business to be in politics either, and the public unfortunately showed you that. All right, so we're going to call it a day. Thank you for listening. Next week, we will be in part 2 of, we're going to look at the smoking guns. We're going to look at what do we have here that shows that Hershel Walker has got the brain damage that makes him completely unfit to be any politician at all, but better yet, a senator who can't even speak clearly and who gets caught lying over and over about how many children he has and how many abortions he paid for, and he can't cleverly lie his way out. He can't make up a good explanation or any sort of excuse. He just says, I said what I'm going to say, and I'm going to say no more. That's what they teach you to do when you're stupid and when you cannot carry an argument, when your brain does not have the ability to remember what it is that you're supposed to say. When they accuse you of something, they say, okay, we're going to come up with a short phrase. Just keep saying this over and over, like fake news. And, that's one. And what are some of the other ones? Well, we'll get into those next week. But right now, Hershel Walker just says things like, I said it already, I already told you. No, you didn't. You didn't explain any of it. You didn't explain why it is that you told us you had no kids, and now we find out you have 3, and it might be 4 illegitimate kids. So we'll get into all of that next week. We'll have a clever title for the series, which I don't have yet, but we will have a clever title about the descending state of Hershel Walker's mental clarity and why it is that I think that is such a strong and clear issue, and that if it's shown to the people of Georgia that no matter how badly no matter how badly they oppose the liberals, they will not vote for Hershel Walker. So we'll see you next week.